Hello and welcome to Candid, where we never settle for less than the truth. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Youssef. Each week we'll tackle tough issues, answer your hard questions, and take a candid look at the Christian faith. And today I want to ask you a question that I've been thinking about. What happens after Easter? The celebrations have ended, the special church services are over, the family gatherings have dispersed. But here's what fascinates me. The most important part of the Christian story happens after the empty tomb. When Jesus rose from the dead, he didn't just disappear into heaven. He spent intentional time with his followers. What he told them in those moments reveals everything about how we're meant to live today. In John's Gospel, there's this fascinating epilogue, chapter 21, that many of us rush past. It's where we discover what Jesus wants from his followers after the resurrection. So whether you're feeling spiritually stuck, wondering if you've somehow failed God too many times, or simply trying to figure out what authentic Christianity looks like beyond the holiday celebrations, stay with me. These final commands from Jesus might completely reorient how you approach your faith journey. If John's Gospel had ended with chapter 20, we might have been left with many questions like, what kind of relationship did Jesus have with his disciples after the resurrection? What happened to Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times? Why don't we have a full record of Jesus' life? Thankfully, John chapter 21 completes the story. We also see Jesus' mercy to his friends, though all had deserted him. He does not abandon them, but calls them to 3 significant tasks that apply to all believers today. The first, Jesus says, "Listen to me." This is in John chapter 21, verses 1 through 14. In this passage, the disciples are out on the water fishing. Jesus has appeared to them after his resurrection and told them that he is sending them. You can read this in John chapter 20, verse 21. But they are also waiting to be clothed with power from on high for the task of spreading the gospel as Jesus instructed in Luke 24:49. So what do they do while they wait? They go fishing. We may wonder, have they given up on the call to be fishers of men and resorted to being fishers of fish? Well, we can't be sure, but remarkably, this scene harkens back to how Jesus first called them. Peter, James, John, and Andrew were among those first called by Jesus. Each had willingly left all they knew behind, their boats, equipment, and families, to follow Christ. Then they witnessed miracles, the transformation of lives, and hostility toward and rejection of Jesus' authority for 3 years. They experienced monumental highs and catastrophic lows. And now they are back in their boats, essentially where they would have been if Jesus had never called them. Peter's head must have been spinning. Maybe he's decided to return to what he's good at. Yet not only has he failed to be faithful to his Lord, he has failed to catch anything. And Jesus appears and reminds Peter and the other disciples of their calling. They will no longer be fishermen, but fishers of men. When Christ called them the first time, his call wasn't temporary. It was for a lifetime. But the disciples needed to listen to the call to hear it. They needed to hear and heed the words of Jesus. When they obeyed his direction, they found a supply of fish they didn't know was there, a supply so great it began to break the nets, as we read in Luke chapter 5, verses 4 and 6. The Lord provided the fish, but the work needed to be done by the fishermen, just as Christ works in hearts but delights to have his disciples haul in the load. When Jesus returns to his disciples on the shore after his resurrection, he calls them again to let down their nets. But the nets were not torn, despite the miraculous catch. No matter the multitudes of nations that will be brought in, the gospel nets will never break. What a comfort to know that when you feel inadequate to share the gospel with someone, it's not your work, it's the Lord's, and the gospel nets will not break. You can trust God, but you must listen for his voice and direction to be effective for his kingdom. Second, Jesus says, "Follow me." In John chapter 21, verses 15 through 19, we need to remember in this account that Peter had failed Jesus. He had denied him and wrongfully rebuked him. But Jesus keeps coming back to Peter, molding and using him. 3 separate times Jesus asks him, "Do you love me?" Recalling the 3 times that Peter had denied him during his trial. Jesus is reinstating Peter, commanding him to serve people. And then Jesus reveals to Peter the trajectory of his life. Peter will glorify God in his death through persecution and martyrdom. When you are old, you will stretch out your hands, an ancient world allusion to crucifixion. And Jesus concludes with the simple command, "Follow me." Surely Jesus' words stirred Peter's memory of that first call to follow the Messiah. But they also must have challenged Peter to remain faithful even in the face of martyrdom. "Follow me" invited Peter to pursue Christ as his all in all. It's an invitation for every one of us, for all who have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Though we may feel unusable or inadequate for ministry, Jesus invites us to pursue him, our rock, our fortress, our deliverer, our delight, our true life. To all weary and burdened who believe you have failed him too many times, Jesus is saying, "Come to me, follow me." Don't give up on Jesus because you think he has left you. He hasn't. He never will. He is always faithful. So follow him. His invitation remains. Third, Jesus says, "Focus on me," in John chapter 21, verses 20 through 23. In this last picture of Jesus with the disciples in John chapter 21, Jesus and Peter are walking along the beach. Remember that Peter has just learned how he will die, and you might expect him to ask questions like, "Lord, when and how will this happen?" Instead, he immediately tries to compare his lot with another, asking, "Lord, what about him?" It's human nature in full swing. Will my friends suffer the same fate? Will they be better off? For Peter, the cost of discipleship is high. He will be martyred for the kingdom. But what about John? Jesus redirects him perfectly, saying, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me." It's the same lesson for each of us. You listen to me. You follow me. You focus on me. If we focus on how our life circumstances compare to others, who are we serving? We are focused on ourselves and not on God's will. We aren't trusting God's plan and his promises of glory that far outweigh any of this world's light and momentary afflictions. Instead, we're prioritizing temporary concerns over eternal matters. What will you accomplish if you are constantly obsessed with your neighbor's circumstances, what he has that you don't? You cannot be consumed with fairness and accomplish anything for the kingdom of God. We must fix our eyes on Christ. remembering that by his grace and mercy we both receive the good we do not deserve, and we escape the wrath we so justly deserve. Jesus indeed is our shield and our very great reward. This is the good news of the gospel. Jesus has freed our captive souls. The one who came to earth as a man, died a sinner's death, was raised to new life, and transforms us by his Spirit. He is the one we cling to. He is the one we listen to. He is the one we follow. Are your eyes fixed upon him? Candid is a podcast from Leading the Way with Dr. Michael Youssef. Don't forget to connect with our social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And subscribe to Candid Conversations on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. While there, please leave a review. It does help people find us. As always, thank you for listening to and sharing this episode.